Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
Be able to say that the American Rescue Plan has passed Congress, and President Biden is going to be signing this signature piece of legislation in about half an hour, they just announced. There are a lot of bills that Congress passes where people may not feel the impact. The American Rescue Plan is simply not one of those bills. From funding $1,400 checks to faster vaccine distribution, to faster school reopening, to help for small businesses, to help for state and local governments so they can avoid layoffs of essential workers. The American Rescue Plan has real impacts on people's lives. And to talk a little about that, we are very pleased to be joined by speakers from across the country. We have Governor Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan. We have Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett from Wisconsin. We have St. Petersburg Mayor Rick Kreisman from Florida. We have Cindy Soul, a fourth grade teacher and the 2021 Maine Teacher of the Year. We have Jesse Green, a small business owner from Lebanon, Pennsylvania. So we're going to start off with Governor Whitmer, and after the lineup of speakers, we will turn it over to members of the media for questions. But without further ado, Governor Whitmer, thanks for joining us.
Great, thanks, Zach. Appreciate that. Shortly, President Biden is going to sign the the American Rescue Plan. It's going to rescue Michigan as well as the rest of the country. This is truly one of the boldest pieces of legislation in the past century. It is hard to understate the size and scope of this historic legislation. The American Rescue Plan delivers direct aid to American families, $1,400 checks, an extension of unemployment benefits, aid to thousands of small businesses and restaurants, a game-changing expansion in the child tax credit, resources to ramp up vaccinations and testing and tracing, support for safely reopening schools and getting our kids back in class and back on track, action to save hundreds of thousands of pensions, and rental, utility, and mortgage assistance. So, in the words of President Biden, help is here. The American Rescue Plan will have immediate, tangible impact on people's lives and on our communities. Checks and unemployment benefits will help folks stay afloat and put food on the table as they deal with the economic hardships. Rental, utility, and mortgage assistance will allow families to keep a roof over their heads, to stay warm and stay together. The child tax credit will cut child poverty in half. We take that in for a second. We're going to cut child poverty in half with this child tax credit. 1 in 5 American children live in poverty today. We're going to cut that in half. Overall, the bill will lift tens of millions of families and kids out of poverty, provide direct aid. Hundreds of millions of Americans will receive that. According to recent analysis, it'll lower our national poverty rate from 13.7% down to 8.7%. That's real people. It's everyday people. You know, the day that President Biden signs, the moment that President Biden signs the American Rescue Plan, hundreds of millions of Americans will be able to go to sleep and know that resources and financial stability and peace of mind is on the way. I'm so grateful for President Biden's leadership. I know the American people can feel the difference when we have competent, steady hand at the helm of our national government. Democrats were elected to Congress and to the White House to help American people. And today, by President Biden's 50th day in office, we have. It's why I was elected in 2018 too. Our governing philosophy as Democrats is simple: get things done that'll make a difference in people's lives right now. It's kind of our thing. Democrats deliver. And so even though we're facing colliding crises, because of President Biden, Speaker Pelosi, and Leader Schumer's capable, compassionate leadership, we're getting things done. I look forward to working with our partners in Congress and the White House to continue advancing the priorities I ran on too, so we can deliver critical aid to all Americans. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Governor, for your remarks and your enormous leadership during this difficult time. And now turn over to Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett from Wisconsin.
Well, thank you very much, Zach, and I'm honored to be here with you this morning. Without a doubt, the last year has been the most tumultuous year that I think most Americans have seen in their lifetime. From the horrible pandemic to the economic tsunami and the loss of tens of millions of jobs and people seeing reduced hours, to the overdue fight for racial justice and equity in our country. It was a year unlike anything we had ever seen before. And for those of us at the local level, we really have been on the front lines trying to deal with all these issues because, as Governor Whitmer said, we're all about getting things done at the state and local level. And that is certainly the approach we've taken here in Milwaukee. So as we battled through this over the last year, I have to admit there have been times when I've thought, when is the cavalry coming? When is the cavalry coming? We need the cavalry. I'm so pleased to announce that the cavalry has arrived under the leadership of President Biden, because for the most meaningful way, really in my entire career, we are seeing the federal government as a true partner to not only our local governments and state governments, but more importantly, to the people throughout the United States. So from the $1,400 checks to the extension of unemployment, to the actions taken to help people stay in their homes, the help for schools. But I think people recognize that this is still about fighting a pandemic. And the fact that you've got really $66 billion to fund coronavirus testing, as well as to distribute the new vaccines from Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Moderna, the changes to the Affordable Care Act, that it's going to make it more affordable for many, many Americans. That is all very, very important. At the local level, again, we're seeing this firsthand. We've seen a loss of revenue. We've seen pressures placed on state governments, on local governments. And this is really, some talk about it as if this is a stimulus. It is a rescue plan, because the people who have been most adversely affected over the last year have been those frontline workers, those people at the lower end of the economic scale who, again, have seen their jobs disappear, who have seen their hours reduced. And President Biden, to his amazing credit, along with the incredible support from the Speaker, the Majority Leader, and all those individuals who voted for this legislation, they recognized that we needed to be rescued. And so I'm very, very grateful. There are many challenges that remain, but it's great to have a true partner in President Biden and our United States Congress.
Thank you so much, Mayor Barrett. Now we'll turn to St. Petersburg Mayor Rick Kreisman. Mayor Kreisman.
Thank you, Zach. It's nice to be with you all today. So the American Rescue Plan will deliver direct relief that Americans really need during this crisis. And with the president's signature today, we'll finally be on a clear path to putting this deadly pandemic behind us. It's important as a mayor that I stress how meaningful this plan is to my city and to cities across America. So in St. Pete, for example, it is our small businesses that give our city that special vibe that's resulted in the growth of our city and the great quality of life that our residents enjoy. Now, last year in St. Pete, as the pandemic hit, before the state of Florida or the last presidential administration did a thing, we created something called the Fighting Chance Fund to get $5,000 into the hands of our small businesses. And to date, we put more than $6 million into the hands of our businesses and employees who lost their jobs. But even with that, it's not enough. It hasn't been enough. Our businesses continue to struggle and people are struggling. And here we are 1 year after this all started. So the American Rescue Plan, which again is going to be signed today, I think is going to help in a big way. And I am especially pleased that the Biden administration has brought science back, that they are listening to experts again as they're making decisions. And with the passage of this plan, real tangible action will occur to stem this deadly virus and really jumpstart our economy. And Americans have been waiting for this. Real help in making ends meet at this uniquely challenging time in our history. I mean, it's been said before, $1,400 of direct financial assistance. Mortgage, I mean, that's a mortgage payment for so many folks. The plan provides resources to state and local governments to assist us in getting as many people vaccinated as fast as possible. $47 million of direct relief to thousands of small businesses like those in my city. Help in safely reopening our classrooms and assisting our higher education institutions whose budgets have been decimated. And again, as mayor, I am really pleased that it provides funding to reimburse cities like mine who have spent unbudgeted funds on things like overtime for our public safety workers and employees who are staffing testing sites. So many businesses across the board are being helped and are going to have their revenues being able to replace. But I want to double click on one thing before I finish. I think it's really a shame that this pandemic has been so politicized, and that much needed relief for Americans during this national crisis draws a party line vote. Joe Biden isn't playing politics. American mayors and governors, we're not playing politics. We don't have time for it. We are elected to serve and help the people, and the American Rescue Plan does exactly that. It helps Americans. So I am so thankful to the President, to the Speaker, to the Senate President for all the actions that they are taking to help get us back on track.
Thank you so much, Mayor Kreisman. With that, I'd like to turn over to Cindy Soul, a fourth grade teacher and the 2021 Maine Teacher of the Year. Cindy.
As an educator, the American Rescue Plan is a real symbol of hope for us reopening schools and getting our students back in the classroom. And it's followed up right after President Biden supported educators in prioritizing vaccinations, which is a critical first step. And so these two elements together is really going to create some momentum for schools to reopen safely. I work in the largest district in Maine, Portland Public Schools, and I work at one of the most diverse schools in Maine. And at the heart of my pandemic story has been humanity. Where there wasn't funding, community organizations stepped up and provided. We collaborated, we identified, we need devices, we need connectivity and hotspots. And it was through community partnerships, which has been amazing and beautiful. And to see this reinvigorated sense of community to take down barriers and create solutions for all learners to have access to education. But alongside this powerful story of humanity, there are stories of inequity, significant stories of inequity that were there before the pandemic and continue to affect our most vulnerable students. Students of color, English language learners, and students with special needs. I have felt worry, and my colleagues have felt worried, and the other teachers of the year that I recently met with have had worry in our hearts about our students. The students who, because their mother is single and is a single mother and trying to work 2 jobs and doesn't speak English. And can you imagine the challenges of supporting a student who faces all of those obstacles? And what this American Rescue Plan will do is it will really provide schools with a multitude of ways. Specifically, I know that in the first funding we got, we had to spend it in a certain amount of time, and it was a really short amount of time. And now this money will be available until 2023, which is significant. We can really plan and prioritize the needs of our most vulnerable students. And we can just really celebrate our learners. We can meet them where they are and invite them back into schools, knowing that the measures of safety are there for all of the members of our learning community. Educators across our nation are so grateful for the Biden administration for this American Rescue Plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Before we turn it over to Jesse, I just want to note that I know Governor Whitmer has to leave right after Jesse speaks. And so if there are members of the media that have questions for them, just send them to us and we'll give them to your staff, Governor, so don't worry about that. Now, very pleased to turn it over to Jesse Green, small business owner from Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Jesse.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. First, I want to say how grateful I am for the passage of the American Rescue Plan. There are so many parts of that are going to be so helpful to so many people. For my family personally, I wanted to talk about the impact of the Affordable Care Act and what the provisions are doing there as far as helping supports for that. So we are small business owners, and when the ACA started, that's when we started signing up on that site. It is the only place where a small business owner who has pre-existing conditions and doesn't have a number of employees can get good health care. So we were in, and it was great. And I am still thankful every day we have that, because it allows me and my family to have insurance we need. However, as time went on and we got older, the premiums got higher and higher, the deductibles got larger, the copays got larger, And it has been my main focus on how I can best handle healthcare for my family. This year, just to give you some concept of what a person like myself is going through, the best plan I could afford, sort of, through the marketplace to cover 3 people is a monthly premium of $1,708. That's what my family pays every month. That is for a bronze plan. That means that we need to have a deductible of $7,600. Once we pay that deductible, I'm paying 50% of the cost of procedures, doctor visits, hospitalizations, prescriptions. That's what I have to pay. My total out of pocket, before it would cover everything, I would need to pay $17,000. Yes. The amount of money I pay for this premium is, well, it is over 20% of my income. And that's just for the premium. It does not count all those out-of-pocket expenses I need to pay. So when I heard and I read that this plan is going to limit my contribution to 8.5% of my family's income, I literally wept for joy. It is amazing. It is everything to us. It is a complete game changer. My only hope is that we extend it permanently rather than cutting it off at 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessie. And now we're going to open things up to the media. If you would like to ask a question, please just raise your hand and we'll say goodbye to Governor Whitmer. Thank you so much for giving me time. I know you had a conflict that you made time for this. Really appreciate it. If you have a question for the member of the media, please raise your hand. It's at the bottom of your screen, and then we will call on you and unmute you so our panel can answer your questions.
Well, we covered it masterfully.
As folks continue to line up, I had a question that was texted to me. Of the pieces of the legislation, what do you all think is going to be most impactful for your constituents between the $1,400 tax, the small business aid? What are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I can jump in there. Without a doubt, the $1,400 check is going to have the most immediate significant impact for tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people throughout this country, and certainly here in Wisconsin. That is huge. The individuals who've been affected and the unemployment extension is huge. I think in a very meaningful way that the relief on foreclosures and evictions in particular, those are the ones that are going to hit fastest and hardest.
Yeah. And I'll jump in and totally agree with Tom's comments. The $1,400, the eviction relief. Again, I mentioned in my comments about our small businesses here and that they are the lifeblood of our community. And so having assistance that they're going to be able to receive through this plan is going to be a huge thing. So many of them are just hanging on by their skin of their fingers right now, and I think this is going to allow them to get to be able to survive until we are through the pandemic and get back to some more of a sense of normalcy.
I would agree too, as I see my family struggling. The rate of homelessness has gone up in my community. Chronic absenteeism is most affecting Black and Brown students in our community. Parents are struggling to juggle jobs and take care of their kids and support them in their education. And so that $1,400 check and the eviction relief is incredible, but also the funding for schools to be able to even further reimagine the way that we can provide education with an equity lens is just going to be incredible. I know my district's theme in our superintendent is advancing equity. And so with those funds, we're getting kids back in school and also doing the critical work of, advancing equity.
I have another question message to me. There's been a lot of talk about the $300 billion that was slated for state and local aid, specifically as related to, as you know, cities and states have had to make painful choices about essential workers. This is a question directed at both mayors. Can you talk a little bit about what this aid will mean specifically for your cities?
Yeah, and that's a great question. You know, when the first round of stimulus dollars came out, there was aid in there for state and locals, but as far as locals go, it was limited. If you were a city of 500,000 or more, you got some relief, although it was very specific on and limited on what it could be used for. My city is, we're the 5th largest in the state of Florida, but we are not 500,000. So we didn't receive any of those funds. And meanwhile, I described our Fighting Chance Fund, for example. That came out of our general revenue fund. That was more than $6 million that we hadn't budgeted. We are out of pocket over $18 million that was unbudgeted. We've seen our revenues like a lot of businesses have, and I'm sure Tom's city is the same way. There's a lot of revenues that we are not receiving. And it won't be just last year and this year, but we expect that hit to continue next year and potentially even into 2022. And not having those revenues impacts our capital improvement budget, impacts the programs that we fund to help reduce poverty, to create equity in our community. And so it was causing us to make some very difficult choices. And so these dollars are really going to help us replace some of those revenues and be able to continue to fund the programs that we were, and to continue to be able to help our community in a meaningful way at creating equity that we're trying to do.
Before I turn to Mayor Barrett, there's a question from Daniel from WMNF in Tampa as a follow-up to this, Mayor Kreisman. You answered the first part of the question, but the second part is, are you confident that St. Pete will receive the money it qualifies for? How could that help or hurt?
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to get it. You know, if President Biden and Congress are saying it's coming down, it's going to come down. So I'm very confident of that. It's going to help us tremendously, though. I mean, we continue to try and get money out into the community as fast as possible to help our small businesses, and there are a lot of projects that we had on the table that we had intended on going forward, but as of right now, we've had to delay them. For a lot of infrastructure, we are a city that is significantly at risk for climate change and sea level rise, and so we've been put in a position where we were having to make some very difficult decisions. This will help relieve some of that pressure.
And I can say here in Milwaukee, like Rick has experienced, we saw a significant loss in revenue, tens of millions of dollars, from fees to parking fees to things as simple as libraries. Lost a lot of revenue. And so this will give us an opportunity to recoup some of that. But I think it is much more significant than that. And I will, as long as I live, remember the second when I saw the first map that identified the onset of coronavirus in my community, because it was so localized in an African-American neighborhood. And what that did is it really laid bare the healthcare inequities that exist here and throughout this nation. It moved into the Hispanic part of the city. And again, you can see the healthcare inequities, the living conditions for individuals. So all of that structural racism that had built up over the years really contributed to the fact that people at the lower end of the economic scale were hit much, much harder. So we look at this now as an opportunity, whether it's housing, whether it's working with homes with lead paint, whether it's working with homes that have lead laterals, to try to get resources in there so that, God forbid, we have something that like this that occurs again, that we will not see that huge disparity in how something like this hits our community. So again, I think that the provisions of this are huge. And one of the other provisions that I think is important that we witnessed here is the broadband provisions, because we know that there's a lot of middle-class homes that have great connectivity, but whether you're in a rural area or you're in a central city, we know that you're not going to have, for some families, that same connectivity. And that's really, really important that we address those issues as well.
Thank you. So we don't have any further questions. So if anyone has any closing thoughts that they would like to make, please feel free to jump in now.
I'll simply say that again, I am so thankful to the president, those in Congress who had the courage to vote for this. I think we all lament the fact that the pandemic became such a partisan issue because it's a healthcare issue. It's a healthcare issue.
Yeah.
And I think that President Biden rightfully has said, let's go back to the science, let's go back to the health, and let's treat this as it really is, and that's a healthcare issue.
Yeah, I'll echo those comments. I can't say thank you to the president and Congress, those who voted for it enough. This is about our communities, and it's about the future of our communities and generations to come. And this is really an investment in them. People are struggling, and it's beyond me that it could have turned partisan in the way it has. I don't understand it when we were all elected to serve the residents of our communities, whether it's our cities, our counties, our state, or our nation. That's what you were elected to do. And thank God we have people who recognize that and are willing to stand up and do the right thing.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I also think about literacy. Since 2009 and the No Child Left Behind Act, our nation remains at about 30% proficient in reading. And with this money, we'll be able to invite students back, see where they are, because we know that they may be behind where they should be. And I just am really thankful to have funds to start to really also remove the barrier of literacy and lack of literacy proficiency for our low-income families and generational poverty that exists in this nation, as well as the inequities that many are faced with the opportunity gap, especially our Black and Brown communities. And so this is going to be incredibly powerful for school communities to start looking at literacy as well.
I agree with everything that's been said. We are in the midst of a huge problem. So we needed a big, bold solution. And I just am so thankful and so grateful that we have it.
Well, I want to thank everybody, the panel, for their remarks today, their advocacy and leadership. It's 1:30 Eastern right now, which means that I think the bill signing is about to get underway. The American Rescue Plan is about to become law. Help is on the way. And so thank you all for joining us today and your leadership. And thank you for the members of the media for joining as well. Thank you.